It's Friday, July 29th, 2022 at 4:54 a.m. here, locally in southern Arizona. This is the TheOneHiraethProject's DiaryCast number 50, entitled Time to Shine. If you've been watching my DiaryCasts for any amount of time, you know that I live a pretty eclectic life, to say the least. The challenge has become trying to take everything that is coming my way and process it in such a way that I'm able to not only understand it myself and internalize the learnings that are offered therein, but to the best of my ability, explain it to other people. When I began these diary casts almost a year ago, never could I have imagined the experiences that I would have had that have now been recorded in posterity. All I went into it with was the idea that I could capture the uniqueness, the oddity that is my life, so that when others may come across it, they may be able to relate to it, or in times far in the future, decades, centuries, even millennia, this information in some kind of digital form will remain. And in that process, the potential exists for the experiences that I'm having today to be brought forward and relatable to those in the future, willing to express themselves, to talk about what we now find elementary, and so forth. I mean, can you imagine even 100, 150 years ago trying to explain to them the digital world that we live in today? The devices that we have, the ways that we travel, the ability to really be anywhere in the world and remain exactly where you are. They would have thought you crazy, or a witch, or something demonic, but the chances are they wouldn't have seen it as divine. They would have seen it as so mysterious, it would be something to be afraid of. Yet it is our common everyday, today. Well, that is how I feel the experiences I have now are going to be viewed or relatable or historically recorded in such a way that people can look back and go, look at that. There was this one who. In today's time, however, it's like I see color, and everyone around me is colorblind. So because of that, I am called a liar all the time. I've had close friends and family members say, she's deluded, she's crazy, what's wrong with her? Or she's just looking for attention, she's lying. Can you imagine if you were the only person who could see color trying to explain a rainbow to someone who's colorblind? It's virtually impossible unless they have an open enough mind and a creative imagination and a flexible mental dynamic to be willing to open to possibility. The thing is, none of these folks can prove, for lack of another word, that I'm lying. They can only assure themselves through self-chatter and gossip that I must be lying or that I must be an attention seeker, because what I'm saying is simply not true, not possible, a fantasy. And from my position, I don't care. If you saw color and others were colorblind, would you care that they say that you're lying? Because you know that you're not. What more do you need? Of course, it's nice to have the pat on the back or the confirmation or the belief, the attaboy, the kind consideration of others to know that you couldn't lie, because that's just not the kind of person that you are. Whether they have the ability to comprehend what you do or not. I found that I have a telepathic connection with a friend. I don't think that friend believes me. but I don't care. Doesn't make it go away. I have a family member that recently told other family members she's lying. She's not talking to God, as she used as the equivalent to lump all of my, let's call them channeled messages from various otherworldly sources into that word, God. There's no such thing as telepathy. No one can talk to God. She's just crazy, and I don't want her around my grandchildren. Well, I guess that particular individual forgot that in February of 2020, I sent her an email and suggested that she, quote, get her house in order, end quote, because something was going to be happening in her world in the near future to come, and she needed to prepare. Now, I was a little more detailed than that, but of course that's a private conversation between me and this person. However, I can share that in my gut, I felt that she was going to have an accident or a medical condition that would be life-threatening. And that, in fact, happened. About 9 months later, she had what she referred to as a mini stroke. I think that's just a layer of disguise over the fact that she had a stroke, which at the time could have been a life-threatening situation had she not been where she was with the ability to have someone nearby to call for help. It was made very clear to me that I should be aware that this person did not have an NDE, a near-death experience. So, of course, anything I said in that email was just coincidence, and I got lucky. And besides, look how much time went by between the time you said something and now. Listen, if an energetic source, whether you want to call it God, the universe, just another intelligence or consciousness that is from another dimension or exists in a way that we can't quite comprehend, takes the time to make sure that another individual, through a third-party conduit, which would be me, is made aware that they need to get their house in order, well, how long would that take? Do they need more than 5 minutes? 1 day, a week, a month? It kind of made me laugh because my first thought was, well, how long is the gestation period for a baby? 9 months. Would you like to have sex and then 2 days later have whatever was produced come out in the physical world? Of course not. Things take time. And it could have taken that person as much as the 9 or 10 months that went by between the time that I shared this information and the event itself to rectify or to take alternative actions, whatever might float your boat. Or maybe it was just to say, hey, this is going to happen. And when it does, we're trying to show you there is more. How better for us to do that than to give you plenty of warning so that you can watch things going on around you and go, nope, that wasn't it. Nope, that wasn't it. Wow, this is it. That's proof. Well, this individual didn't want proof. Why that information came to me when I wasn't seeking it, I'll never know. But I did know the instant that I was told about this, that was what that email was referencing. Now, how do I know? To try and put it in simplistic terms, I felt it. Before I was told, on the day that it happened, I felt a shift in my energetic field. It was that shift that made me wonder what's going on around me that's now different. Who is that this is happening to? And what is it that's making me feel this way? For me, as an intuitive, it was a learning process. It was to have the feeling, not really know exactly how to qualify it, quantify it, label it, identify it in terms of human physical activity in this reality experience that, we call life. once it happened, to be able to relate that feeling to that event. For the other person, I felt like they missed the boat. They could have finally had the opportunity to awaken or to open to the possibility of more that exists all around us all the time. What happened instead was that that person asked that I not be told what happened. That person did not take my calls, respond to my emails, and to this day I've still not gotten a response. I feel very comfortable and confident in these experiences that I have for reasons that are as much scientific as anything else. I mean, we all know who Einstein is, for example, and he had his general theory of relativity that he tried to expand into what is now referred to as the unified field, and I think he may have even coined that phrase, even though he never completed his research on it, where he tried to take that general theory of relativity and blend it with electromagnetism to prove the unified field theory, which he had originally been introduced to by a gentleman named James Clerk Maxwell. And Einstein was dipping his toe in these waters as early as 1915, and I think it was around 1922 that what he was proposing as the unified field was getting its first traction. To describe it in my layman's terms, the unified field is the equivalent of understanding that two objects, per se, two bodies of matter, are not actually what interacts with one another. In other words, if I shake your hand, is it really my hand and your hand coming in contact and making those movements of interaction? Or, as unified theory projects or proposes, it's the space around that matter that is interacting. And it is this space of electromagnetism that creates the energetic signatures that are actually bouncing off of one another and creating the equivalent of what we believe, what appears to us at our form level to be physical interaction. I know that's not exactly what it is. Go look it up on Google, but you get the idea. All of these earlier experiences that I've had for quite a few years now, many of which have been captured in the last year in this DiaryCast series as they're happening what I would call live, week to week, the exploration and experimentation that I've been doing of this more taught me how to, let's say, properly hone in on or tune in to my intuitive abilities. In the beginning, I used to share my findings excitedly with those around me, one individual in particular. But one by one, as I shared these experiences with others, they detached from me, with one person even saying that I repelled them. That was hard to take because all I was trying to do was to see what else was out there, to explore, as so many scientists, theorists, and contemplatives have for eons. So, in essence, I don't really share what happens with those that I come in contact with on a day-to-day because I don't need that kind of ridicule, especially when I know that the journey that I took and all of its mistakes brought me to where I am today. It was like I was a toddler learning how to walk. Do people give a toddler a hard time, turn away because they're learning? No, they embrace them and they say, "Here, try it again." They hold out a helping hand, but they don't dismiss them. Well, that was a hard lesson for me to learn, that people didn't want to hear this kind of thing. And I had to learn without any support beams to hold me up when the tsunami of rage hit. But trying to, let's say, bring this home, today it's like visiting the main branch of the public library in New York City. Anything you want to know is there and can be tracked down, but until you pull the book off the shelf, sit down, and begin to read, you know no more about that than you did when you walked in the doors. And that's what it's like when it comes to communications or connections with that I can just classify as something more. So imagine yourself now getting information as if you are perusing books on a shelf, let's say even running your fingers across the spine, and you see titles like Neighbor's Adultery? Not interested. Family Medical Condition? Nah. Friends' Illegal Activities? Next. Co-workers' Fetishes? Well, maybe another day, but not today. People in line with you at the post office? I wonder. So you pull that one off the shelf, you open it up and look at the table of contents. They're wishing advice on how to speak to someone that they're in love with. No. Forget about that. Today, for me, it's like that. I just run my hand against the bindings as I pass title upon title until I find a classic or two that's sure to bring me, well, whatever I wish for. Like Ralph Waldo Emerson's book of essays, published in 1841, one in particular entitled Compensation. You will find that there are pontificators, contemplatives like Emerson, who actually think the way that I do today back then. His work of compensation was revered, took people's breath away.
The universe is represented in every one of its particles. Everything in nature contains all the powers of nature. Everything is made of one hidden stuff, as the naturalist sees one type under every metamorphosis, and regards a horse as a running man, a fish as a swimming man, a bird as a flying man, a tree as a rooted man. Each new form repeats not only the main character of the type, but part for part all the details, all the aims, furtherances, hindrances, energies, and whole system of every other. Every occupation, trade, art, transaction is a compend of the world, and a correlative of every other. Each one is an entire emblem of human life, of its good and ill, its trials, its enemies, its course, and its end. And each one must somehow accommodate the whole man and recite all his destiny. The world globes itself in a drop of dew. The microscope cannot find the animalcule which is less perfect for being little. Eyes, ears, taste, smell, motion, resistance, appetite, and organs of reproduction that take hold on eternity, all find room to consist in the small creature. So do we put our life into every act. The true doctrine of omnipresence is that God reappears with all his parts in every moss and cobweb. The value of the universe contrives to throw itself into every point. If the good is there, so is the evil. If the affinity, so the repulsion. If the force, so the limitation. Thus is the universe alive.
And those principles, those expressions of spirituality, of balance, things that are more of the more, were well received. Whereas I talk about the same things today, and I'm shunned, I'm sullied, and I'm told I'm repelling. But fear not, because I'm in good company. Emerson, Einstein, and me. Who could ask for anything more? And in such company, it's time to shine. And for this week, I will leave it there.